Hey, before we start, I want you to know that I did an interview with John Philbin live from Bobby's G-Land camp about a week ago. You can find the link to that in the description below. All right, on with the preview. Grajagan is back, and so is Gabriel Medina. But will I put him on my fantasy surf team? We'll get into that and more. Hey everyone, it's Old Surf Dad, and in this G-Land preview, we're going to check out the jungle surf forecast for Grajagan. Then we're going to get into some key stats in the Old Surf database. And finally, I'm going to make my men's and women's fantasy picks. But first, let's check in with our Fantasy Surf League. We have a Fantasy Surf League around here, and you can join. There's a trophy for the season champion, and winners from each event get recognized in our Hall of Fame. Just go to oldsurfdad.com for more information. For the Margaret River Pro, let's congratulate Bobby with the win. He's joined our list of event champions. Seaberg was next and runner-up with over 800 points. Mowgli the Champs comes in at number 3. Marina State Beach in the 4th position. And Kook Slam King rounds out the top 5. Again, congratulations to all of you. Now, let's look at the overall rankings following the Margaret River event. The OldSurfDad.com League has some of the best fantasy teams in the world, starting with RTG, who's ranked 13th out of some 100,000 fantasy teams. Griffin Not Colapinto is in 2nd position, ranked 19th in the world, but joined after the Margaret River event, so I'm going to have to give 2nd place props to the consistency of Yerub, whose name I've said in almost every video. Madeirans is in 3rd overall in the league and ranked in the top 100 in the world. Keps is back in the top 5 at number 4. And finally, TJ Art is still on the list at number 5. Now, what do the top 2 in our league have in common? They are regulars in the Discord chat and run some solid takes on picks. You can find out more about joining our text chat on oldsurfdad.com. Okay, moving on to the jungle surf forecast for Grajagan. Let's get it. G-Land is like a catcher's mitt waiting for any swell that comes out of the roaring 40s, and that combined with the deep water Java Trench almost guarantees waves. I've been there several times and never seen it less than head high and usually much bigger. The conditions are often perfect during this dry season time of year, with a consistent offshore wind starting in the late morning and continuing through the rest of the day. With less surfers competing after the cut, the WSL will have a unique opportunity to score the best possible waves within the 10-day waiting period, focusing on a single swell event if necessary. Here's the current surf forecast, and it looks like there's a swell before the waiting period and as I make this video on May 24th. After that, smaller surf is forecasted, and honestly, it doesn't look very good. Hopefully that will change, just like we saw in Margaret River. New storms develop quickly, and G-Land, in fact, picks up those same Western Australia swells. This event has had luck on their side, and the 1997 Quiksilver G-Land event is arguably one of the best contests ever. There were 14 10-point rides. 14. Can you imagine? The scheduled dates are almost the same. Let's hope we see G-Land light up and the performances match this incredible wave. Oh, and WSL judges, don't be so stingy with those 10s. Alrighty, moving on to some fantasy stats. The last time there were events at G-Land was in the mid-90s. Bill Clinton was president, the movie Friday just came out, and TLC's Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls was the #1 Billboard song. Oh, and by the way, Kelly was surfing in those events. I often like to look at past results, but in this case, it's not going to help us much. I thought about looking at pipe results to give us some insight. I mean, Speedies has been called 4 pipelines joined together, but there's one thing that's different. There's no backdoor at G-Land. It's all left, and a lot of scores come from pipes ledging backdoor right. So it's not a fair comparison when surfers are pulling 10s out of backdoor disappearing acts. Fiji, on the other hand, is roughly comparable, a long left with tube sections. Now, I think G-Land could have a more high-performance wall and air potential, specifically talking about money trees here, but let's look at some highlights. There hasn't been an event in Fiji since 2017, which is a damn shame, but here's some names we know. Kelly won in Fiji's lefts 4 times and Gabriel Medina twice. Most recently, Connor O'Leary was runner-up to Matt Wilkinson in an all-goofy final. And 8 years ago, Santa Cruz goofy footer Nat Young was runner-up to Gabriel Medina in another all-goofy final. Here's your women's event winners for the last 3 years. Courtney, most recently in 2017, and then Johanne Defay and Sally Fitzgibbons. I noticed a trend in the men's Fiji results with a lot of goofy-footed finals. In 1997, there were 14 goofy footers seen here, including the Luke Egan-Chris Gallagher final. Here's the goofy footers in the 2022 event, including wildcard Gabriel Medina and the only women's goofy footer, Tatiana Weston-Webb. The other factor I thought was important was how CT surfers perform in reef breaks. Here's the top 7 men's reef break specialists based on their average heat score, led by Kelly, John, and Gabriel Medina. I made it 7 instead of 5 because I thought it was interesting that Jack Robinson and Nat Young tied for the 6th position. And here's the women's top 5 reef break specialists, led by Carissa Moore and Sally Fitzgibbons. Even though Steph Gilmore is on the list, her performances in sand bottom points and wave pools are significantly higher than reef breaks. What do the Australian odds makers think? Here's the top 5 favorites headed into G-Land, with John and Gabriel Medina most favored to win. To see the complete list, go to oldsurfdad.com. Following the cut, there's a new format that we haven't seen before. Here's what the rulebook says about it, but let me try to simplify it. In the men's, there will be 8 3-man heats, winners go to the round of 16, and the losers compete head-to-head to get reseeded back into the round of 16. This is where fantasy points start, in the round of 16. So reselects can be made up until the end of the elimination round, but before the start of the round of 16. This is also where your survival pick is determined. I'll be making my survival pick later in this video. By the way, the same format holds true for the women, but there are even less surfers, so fantasy points start in the quarterfinals. For your women's picks, you must reselect before the start of the quarterfinals. If none of this makes sense, see the new rule in the description of this video below, or ask any questions in the comments section. I'm ready to move on to some men's and women's fantasy picks. Before we get started, I just want to remind you all that each event is worth 10% more points than the last, so the current multiplier is 1.5. All right, starting with the women's Tier A picks, and there's Brisa Hennessy wearing the yellow jersey in first place. Her success should no longer be a surprise to us, but yet it still is. Remember, she qualified through the CS this year. I have yet to pick her this season, and it has definitely hurt my fantasy team. Did you realize that Brisa did better than both Tyler Wright and Carissa Moore at Margaret River? Something else to consider is Brisa spent a lot of time training in Fiji during the pandemic. Looking at Tyler Wright's stats here for a second, she has a higher win percentage at 65% and a higher average heat total than both Brisa and Carissa. But hey, I'm disregarding all of this, and I'm going with Carissa at G-Land, leaning on her competitive prowess and experience in reef waves. I have to be honest though, my confidence in this pick is as low as it's been this entire season, which says a lot about the way Brisa and Tyler are surfing. Moving on to women's Tier B, Isabella Nichols, coming off an impressive win at Margaret River, has the highest heat win percentage, but I'm going with Courtney, who has done well in Fiji and has the highest average heat score. I really like Gabriella Bryan here, and I may take her in reselects depending on how she surfs, but she's against Carissa in the opening round. Remember, only one surfer of 3 moves into the round of 16. The other 2 go to the elimination round, which is different from how it usually works before the cut. My other pick is going to be Johanne Defay, who hasn't had a great year, but she's been consistent, and I feel like this is her type of wave, especially since she grew up on Reunion and surfed the left at St. Lou. Moving to Tier C, we have 3 choices here, and I will tell you Tatiana Weston-Webb is going to be my pick. I think she'll do well here, and she even has a good chance to win. By the way, I'm disappointed that Caroline Marks isn't surfing G-Land. What an epic combination that would be. Now for my rant, and any Aussie listeners out there should probably turn down the volume. Why the hell is Sally Fitzgibbons the wild card for Grajagan and for the start of the 2023 season. This makes no sense to me. The first right pick is obviously Malia Manuel, who is just 65 points behind Tati. And India Robinson and Molly Picklum are tied for the spot behind Malia, all way ahead of Sally on points. In fact, Sally is a couple thousand points behind all of them. You can see it here in the rankings. And then there's Moana Jones. If anyone deserves to surf a pipeline-like wave, it's her. She's an excellent choice and an upset in the making. That would be a great story. Now, maybe they chose Sally because she's a fan favorite or extremely likable. If that's the situation, then let's pick Coco Ho, who has that in spades. Others may say, hey, but she was in the top 5 last year. Yeah, well, I don't see them giving a wild card to Morgan Sibilic. I just don't get it. Someone please explain this decision in the comments below. All right, rant over. Let's move on to men's tier A. Look at this incredibly talented lineup. You could argue that any of these surfers could win, but you can only pick 2, and my 2 are John and Idolo. I'm going to make John my power surfer because he's used to powerful reef waves, and he's a tube riding savant. I think his creativity lends itself well to the G-Land wall. As for Idolo, I think we have yet to see his true potential this year, and he's going to frontside speed run these waves and do crazy turns and airs. I can't wait to watch this. For Tier B men's, let's start with the elephant in the room, Gabriel Medina. Are we picking Gabby? Yes, we are. He is currently on the other side of the draw from John, and I could see that being the finals. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. He's my pick and an easy selection for me. My other picks will be Baron Mamiya, who has the highest win percentage in the group at 62.5%, and Grajagan is the perfect fit for his surfing. Next, I'll take Nat Young and Kelly because I'm old surf dad and I live in the past and I like vintage things. But hey, they do have that spark that can start a momentum fire. They also seem to lift their game when the waves are good. If I'm wrong, what the hell, I can reselect later. For the Tier C men's, I can't believe I'm looking at Jadson Andre or any of these other surfers as a pick, and Joao Chianca is surfing in the CS. How is that possible? Don't get me wrong, there's talent here, but how that guy missed the cut, I can't figure out. Now, Connor O'Leary makes the most sense here, and I can't think of any reason not to pick the goofy footer. So I'll take him and back that up with the rookie wildcard, Rio Wada. I almost always pick Rio when he competes, and he usually lets me down. I'll say this time will be different a lot with him. I love his radical surfing, but if it doesn't work out, I'll reselect Jackson Baker or whoever's still left in the scrap heap. All right, there they are, the best G-Land picks in the world. Well, for me anyway. How about you? Who are your power surfers? Where am I completely wrong, and where did I get it right? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll discuss. All right, next up, Survival Pick. So far, I've made it through with John at Pipe, Jack Robinson at Sunset, Kanoa Super Tubos, Felipe at Bells, and Idolo at Margaret River. For G-Land, I'm taking Gabriel Medina and hope I can continue my streak. Only 25% of the Survival League is left, so the 3-board Panda Quiver and the $3,000 is that much closer. Let's go. Hey, I want to take a moment and thank all of you for 500 subscribers. I really appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please join us. It really helps the channel. And if you haven't seen my interview with John Philbin live from Bobby's G-Land camp, you should check it out here. It's an amazing journey, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right, everybody, good luck with your fantasy league, and we'll see you on the next one.